So what the plan and documents also that's what we called it in the early editions of the book, is big design up front, right? So they are purposely taking the time to do the design before they do anything. So it can result in a good software architecture. In particular, if you remember from the plan and document approach, you write this elaborate and long specification called the SRS, and then you take that and you break it into problems, and then for each task you try and find the design patterns that match that. So in the waterfall or these other models, you start off with the spec, and then you start, before you write code, you come up with the patterns. So it's kind of like we talk, our test-driven approach to testing. You write the test before they code. Here they come up with the patterns and architecture before you do it. And then you get feedback from outsiders to ask about your design. That's a design review versus a code review. Do we have a good design? Are we using the right design patterns, the right software architecture? So a lot of the P&D approach is around trying to get good design up front. And so the Agile approaches gets criticized, but you just start doing code without any design, and that you have to rely on refactoring to get the good the design patterns in there. On the other hand, you know, when they went to the mountain and came down with the Agile Manifesto, they had a comeback. They said, well, but when you do all that elaborate design up front, that's great until you start coding, because you're not sure this is really going to work, that it's even going to match the customer's needs, and particularly over time as the software evolves, you're probably going to have to change the design pattern, so you're going to have to do the refactoring anyway. So that's the comeback here, right? So kind of the question is, how much should you do up front? So you need to be able to plan for the storage for the app before you get started. You know you're going to be able to do databases. You should be thinking about horizontal scaling, which Armando will talk about soon when we talk about optimizations. And then the basic idea is just kind of common sense. If you've already done a project like this and you figured out what designs would work, or you learned from that and which design you wish you had, go ahead and start with that in the design. Factor that into what you're going on. Now, how do you get started in design patterns? This is the Gang of Four book. Goes out of its way to say that design frameworks are different than patterns. The patterns are these more abstract, narrow in focus, not targeted at the programming domain. They're trying to, when they're trying to popularize what a design pattern is, people are confused about it. However, if you don't have a lot of experience with design patterns, frameworks are a great way to get started. There's design patterns, you can look at the code to see what it looks like. I would say, kind of reflecting on this, that, I mean, when we got advice from industry about learning about Agile and PlanandDocument, the thing that they wanted to say is very likely over your careers there will be new methodologies will be invented. I would say one of the weaknesses of Agile, it's got a lot of things going for it, but it really doesn't factor in design. So maybe there's going to be some new methodology that you'll invent or you'll see that'll get the positives of Agile, but bring in the importance of good design patterns and good software architectures, which is right now you have to kind of retrofit in.